I'm here to talk today a little about anxiety. In my role treating clients, I've had a ton of experience working one-on-one with treating anxiety, but also in my role as COO at Thriving Center, I have the privilege and pleasure to supervise over 100 therapists, and they bring concerns to me all the time that their clients bring through the door. And so I'm pretty confident and well-versed in anxiety, and I'd love to share some things today with you. So we're going to go through 3 different topics on today. First, what is anxiety? Second, when is anxiety helpful and when is it unhelpful? And last, when can I manage it on my own and when do I need to go get help? So let's break down anxiety to begin with. I think it's a buzz term these days. I think a lot of people say the word anxiety and they may know what it means, but I think it's helpful to dissect that term a bit more. I like to think of anxiety as like a Neapolitan ice cream. It comes in 3 flavors. You've got chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. Chocolate being your emotions. Are you feeling worried, stressed, fearful, or anxious? That's chocolate. Strawberry would be your thoughts. Those runaway things when you can't turn your mind off. I call it what-ifing things to death. What if this happens? What if that happens? Unhelpful predictions about the future that make your mind race. And the last, the vanilla, those would be the physical sensations that you might experience. This is the flavor that people often miss out on and miss the signs of. Many of the common things might be shortness of breath, tightness in your chest, racing heart might be something some of you are familiar with, but you can also get indigestion or stomach pain and muscle tension, which could lead to things like tension headaches. So the physical piece cannot be disregarded. And I think it's very important when you think about what anxiety is to recognize that that is a flavor that some people experience. Oftentimes, just like in an ice cream container, though, these 3 parts touch together, right? So how we feel in the moment affects that thought process, which then affects how our body physically responds, and a vicious cycle can be created. And so if we're feeling slightly anxious, and then we have a thought about, what if I forget what I'm saying? Or what if someone doesn't like me? Or what if I'm judged? We might tense up, our heart might race, our stomach might feel like it's in a knot, which is then going to increase our anxiety, increase our fear, increase our stress response. So that, in a nutshell, is what anxiety is. But why do we have it in the first place? So anxiety is a biological reaction as a safety mechanism. Anxiety was really put in place in our animalistic brains to keep us safe. So our ancestors had to worry about getting eaten by a lion or a tiger or a bear. And that mechanism is still in place today, except now it's a test you might have to take, a presentation you have to give at work, a long road trip in traffic, right? That elicits the same body and mind sensation of anxiety that it did for our ancestors when they were worrying about getting eaten and worrying for their safety. So anxiety serves as a safety mechanism from that perspective. And in today's world, it's really helpful to recognize how is anxiety harming us, but how is it maybe helping us too? I think that leads us into our second point today. And many people, I think, have a negative connotation when they hear the word anxiety. They think of it as bad, right? But if you didn't feel any anxiety, you wouldn't get up to go to school or work in the morning. You wouldn't activate to send that email right before the day is finished. You wouldn't be motivated to study for your test in order to make sure you passed. So in doses, anxiety activates us. It helps us move towards a goal, and it creates a little bit of that energizedness behind the scenes to move us forward. On the other hand, though, what happens when anxiety becomes unhelpful? How do we know? Well, in the most cases, that unhelpful anxiety leads to unwanted outcomes. And more often than not, that outcome is avoidance. So instead of feeling anxious and excited and motivated to study for a test, we may procrastinate because that fear of failure is weighing on us so much, we just shove the books away and don't study at all. Or that anxiety may lead us to not engage in a social situation out of fear of being judged or left out. And so we stay home. And a single time of avoidance isn't necessarily unhelpful. But if you look at yourself in the mirror and say, how often am I avoiding? Am I not getting the most out of the life that I want? And is that consistent and happening day in, day out, week in and week out? That's when anxiety tips into the unhelpful side of the scale. So what do we do about that? Well, I like to say that the first step of recognizing anxiety is awareness, right? Understanding how you're experiencing it, right? Are you chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? Are you thinking? Are you emotions? Or are you physical sensations, or some combination of the three? And the second step is, how much is that interfering with my life? If your answer is a little bit, I'm not as productive as I want, I'm not as secure as I want, but I'm functional, I go to work every day, I'm in school every day, I'm passing my classes, I'm performing well at work, but I'm just missing something, chances are you don't need a therapist. What you do need is to look inside a bit more and understand where this is coming from and recognize when it is being helpful or unhelpful. How do you do that? I like to say, bring out the inner toddler in you. Worry it out. Recognize what's behind the anxiety. So when you notice that behavior, which is the one thing we often can tangibly touch the most. Oh, I'm not going to this party because of my anxiety. I'm not sending that email because of this anxiety. Once we recognize the effect of the anxiety on us, let's back it up and say why. What would happen if I went to the party? What would happen if I sent the email? Then we look at an objective outcome. Oh, I'm worried this person might not reply. Or I'm worried I may get judged, right? Once you recognize what's beneath the anxiety, oftentimes, if you're in a relatively good mental health space, your rational brain can take over and recognize that either, number one, that outcome is very unlikely to happen, or number two, if that outcome happens, I could probably tolerate it. It may not be perfectly pleasant, but I could tolerate it. If your answer is it's not going to happen or I could tolerate it, congratulations, you're ready to rock and roll. You've identified how the anxiety feels. You've identified what your concern may happen in a specific situation, and you've recognized that you could tolerate it or that the likelihood of that happening is very minimal. And then you can move forward with your life. But if you ask yourselves those questions and the impact on your life is very significant and you're unable to tap into the rational side of your brain and anxiety is running the show, it tells you that no matter what happens, you could not tolerate it. And so you avoid more and more. Or it tells you that this is so likely to happen, even if there's a little bit of your rational brain that recognizes that might not be true, right? That's the time when the anxiety has reached a level of unhelpfulness that it may be time to seek a therapist, right? Now, seeking a therapist can be challenging in its own right and can be anxiety provoking. But what a therapist will help you do is work on that why, work on getting behind the curtain and help you gradually create steps forward that challenge your anxiety in digestible amounts, but help you be successful. And one of the best antidotes to anxiety is baby steps of confidence. The more confident you feel, the more the anxiety drips into the background. The more you've retrained your brain that what the anxiety said you couldn't do in the past, you were able to do. Think of it as your own little science experiment. You're testing the hypothesis your brain comes up with. And the more that you are untrue in proving that hypothesis, that bad outcome isn't going to happen, or wow, I actually could tolerate it even though it was a little uncomfortable, you create a more positive movement forward towards a more fulfilling life, a less anxious life, and you help to reset your thermostat to understand when anxiety may actually be helping you, but also recognize when it's not being helpful. So I hope today that was a nice introduction to anxiety. I hope it gives you a little bit of information on what to take home and start to pay attention to in your own life. And if you comment below on how else you'd like me to review anxiety in the future, I would love to hear from you, and we'll take that next step then. Thanks so much.